This video is written from the perspective of someone with autism spectrum disorder. Thanks for watching. One of the most well-known traits of autism spectrum disorder is special interests or hyperfixations. This is when a person has a very strong focus or interest in some sort of subject, ranging from trains to TV shows or anything in between. Autism is a spectrum, so these traits aren't relevant to everyone with the diagnosis. But many people with autism feel emotions very strongly, and that in turn can be projected onto an interest. This also can provide comfort, as people with autism may like to have something they know well, and can feel happiness by talking about or engaging with that interest. I myself have ASD, and I've fixated on a large variety of topics throughout my life, from Club Penguin to the Pokemon franchise. One of my special interests when I was younger, and that I recently rediscovered my love for, is the My Little Pony franchise. And I am nowhere near a minority here, with MLP being an extremely common fixation for people with autism. To an outsider, that might seem like a random franchise for so many autistic people to enjoy, but I think what it mainly comes down to is that the world of MLP can feel extremely inclusive to someone with autism. I'm hesitant to say any characters are deliberately autistic coded, but many characters exhibit traits that autistic individuals can relate to. In the real world, being different can be a challenge, but in Equestria, being different is celebrated. With that introduction out of the way, welcome to Glimmer Times, and here is My Little Pony from the autistic perspective. As Friendship is Magic opens its first episode, we're introduced to honors student Twilight Sparkle. While studying, she reads about the elements of harmony, and becomes extremely interested in learning more about them. Her friends invite her to a party, but she blows them off to continue her studies. As the episode progresses, she meets friends who accept her, and as the series continues, they help her by understanding her unique traits and helping her throughout tough times. There's a stereotype of sorts that people with autism have a hard time with social cues and making friends, and this can be in part due to us not intuitively knowing how others expect us to act. For 5 other ponies to take time to understand Twilight for all of her quirks, flaws, and differences, it was really inspiring to watch. Of course, this is a great message in general, and tons of different demographics enjoy MLP just as much as the autistic community. But for a pony considered different to be able to make friends in the first episode, it's easy to understand why so many autistic people were able to relate to the show and become fans from the start. As I go through this video, I just want to highlight a few characters that spoke to me based on how I perceive the world around me. I'm not here to argue that Twilight or any other character I speak about today is specifically autistic coded. The point of this video is to talk about some characters that I personally thought reflected my experience living with ASD, or reflected the experiences of friends of mine with the same diagnosis. My goal here is to paint a picture for how MLP is so relatable to an audience member with autism. Hopefully the Twilight segment was able to get that point across, and now I'm going to transition to a bit about Spike. Spike is a baby dragon who was raised his whole life by ponies. When he visits the Dragonlands a few times throughout the show, he feels extremely out of place and is bullied by other dragons in some instances. He's made fun of for being friends with ponies and enjoying things from their culture. In a group of creatures who resemble him, he is considered an outsider and does not belong. While I don't personally consider Spike to be an autistic-coded character, I think this interaction can be extremely relatable to those on the spectrum. An autistic person is bound to see their surroundings through a different lens to a neurotypical, and sadly in many cases, this can lead to bullying because society views them as different. Growing up, and even now, there are people who would scrutinize me because they believe MLP is for girls or for kids. But even when Spike is outcasted from his clan for liking pony life, he's able to be accepted by his true friends, which is a great message. Of course, these are specific cases, and there are plenty of times where a neurotypical and neurodivergent person can see eye to eye and learn from each other. But in the cases of feeling different, or feeling like an outsider, it's great to find people who understand you, and that's who the ponies are to Spike. Many children on the spectrum have had different experiences with schools and how they were treated growing up. Some may be familiar with some sort of gifted students program. In elementary school, they may be put in special classes, where they do extra work, being told that they're gifted and capable of grandeur. While well-intentioned, growing up like this can lead students to believe they're naturally smart and never get any experience studying or working for anything. Sometimes this can lead to incredible burnout later in life, when all other classmates know how to study and surpass their limits, and the previously gifted student falls further and further behind without those skills. I've come to think that the character of Sunburst was written with this idea in mind. When he's a colt, he has incredible magical potential and is celebrated for it. However, when Starlight meets him in the present day, he comes across as disheveled and doesn't seem to have done much with his education. He's clearly well learned, but never learned how to apply himself because of how he was raised. And while that wasn't necessarily how he intended his life to go, in the end he was able to connect with some great friends and still help Equestria out with his magical knowledge. Seeing a character like him be celebrated for his successes and not criticized for his faults is quite inspiring. I've seen some fans liken Pinkie Pie's Pinkie Sense and other wacky gags to stimming or tics. Stims, or self-stimulatory behaviors, are repetitive movements or sounds that can be used for self-soothing or sensory regulation. Some common examples are things like rocking back and forth or flapping your hands. On the other hand, tics can be involuntary motor or vocal movements, such as blinking or twitching. Both of these can happen in autistic folks with varying intensities, but by and large, a lot of us will have some experience with behaviors like these. From my perspective, I don't think any of Pinkie's behaviors were necessarily meant to come off as a stim or tic, but we might find her tail twitches or eye flutters to be relatable to these real behaviors. While at first Twilight doesn't understand the supernatural abilities of Pinkie Sense, by and large, no one really has a problem with Pinkie's unique behaviors in this episode and others. Tics and stimming can be completely normal and harmless behaviors, so a lack of judgment goes a long way. I don't really think that was ever the writer's intentions with Pinkie Sense, but a lot of fans definitely seem to see the similarities. This video is about being able to find parts of yourself represented in the show, so I think it was definitely worth a mention here. While on the topic of the pies, I want to finish off this video by talking about Maud Pie and her boyfriend Mudbriar. In many forums I read online while researching this video, they seemed to be the most talked about characters in discussions about autism-coded characters. I opened the video by talking about hyperfixations, and these two characters are really great examples of special interests. Maud's special interest is geology, and she schedules her whole life around it. She's able to go to school and make a great career about her interest, which is something really inspirational. Hyperfixations don't just have to be interests for fun. When you spend the time to learn everything about a topic, you can do a lot with that information. One of my best friend's fixation is trains, and he's currently a 4.0 student in railway engineering. And hey, this channel gets ad revenue, so I'm making money yapping about my MLP fixation, so there's that too. Maud shows us not just acceptance for a hyperfixation, but inspires us to continue to love them and not be ashamed. I'm not done with Maud Pie yet though. I want to talk a bit about her vibes and personality. From watching a few episodes with her, you might notice her facial expression rarely ever changes, or that she speaks very monotonely. In Maud Pie's debut episode, Pinkie's friends don't fully understand her, and assume she's disinterested in what they do because of her demeanor. For some people with autism, they may feel the same emotions as anyone else, but show them in different ways. Maud Pie has fun and feels the same as any pony, she just expresses that in a much different way than her sister. Once the main six understand this about Maud, they all become really good friends with her, and we see them hang out together on multiple occasions. In a neurotypical normative society, some of our autistic ways of acting may seem hard to understand at first for NTs. But if both parties put in the work to understand each other, there's plenty of room for friendship in store. To wrap up this segment on Maud and Mudbriar, I think it's a really special thing that they were able to find a relationship with each other. Many people with autism want to date, but have a hard time doing so in the way most others do. Aspects of dating culture like subtext in nonverbal communication or understanding other people's emotions can be challenging. Whether or not Maud and her boyfriend are intended to be autistic coded, a viewer on the spectrum is able to see them thriving in their relationship and realize dating is possible for them too. This is by no means me saying that autistic people have to date others on the spectrum as well, but for some people that may be a preference or part of their type. In any case, the Maud couple shows that whatever someone's personal way of showing love is, there's a match out there for them. Love is possible for anyone, and that's a beautiful theme in a show about friendship. That's about it for this topic. I wrote this video as more of an anthology of different points rather than one conclusive throughline, because I don't think this show was meant to have one specific autistic plot. It's more so that the world of Equestria is set up in a way where a viewer on the spectrum may be able to relate to certain aspects, and feel represented through the general population of the show rather than one specific minority. It doesn't come across as some sort of forced autism representation, because that's not what it is. It's just a world where someone like me can feel welcome, and I just think that's kind of neat. I've seen some other videos come up on my YouTube recommended with similar concepts to this, but since I knew I wanted to write this video for a while, I haven't watched any of them so as not to overlap ideas. However, knowing other fans have felt compelled to write about their experience with MLP and ASD makes me feel much more seen with my experience, so I'm happy to add to that group. If you have had any similar experiences, I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. With all of that said and done, thanks for tuning into some Glimmer Times, and I'll see you in the next one.